It was pouring outside, and she stumbled into the lavish penthouse, drenched from head to toe. Water pooled at her feet on the marble floor. Her dark hair clung to her face, mascara running in thin black rivers down her cheeks. She was shaking, whether from cold or fear, she didn't know. The thunder outside mirrored the tension in the room. Before she could even speak, the Mafia Boss quietly closed the door behind her, cutting off the storm's chaos. The sudden silence was deafening. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, and in a low, controlled voice, whispered, "You're not leaving like this." Every word hung in the air, charged with danger, desire, and the unspoken rules of his world. She froze, heart racing, realizing she was completely at his mercy. His name was Vincent Corso, and in this city that name meant power. It meant fear. It meant death if you crossed him. But tonight, as he looked at the trembling woman before him, something unfamiliar stirred in his chest, something he hadn't felt in 20 years. Dark past. Vincent Corso had built his empire on blood and silence. He was 42 years old, but his eyes looked older, ancient, hollow, like a man who'd seen too much and felt too little. He wore expensive suits that never wrinkled, lived in a penthouse that overlooked the entire city, and controlled half the underground operations from the docks to the Diamond District. People whispered his name in dark alleys and expensive restaurants alike. He had everything, and he had nothing. His father had been a mafia boss too. Vincent learned young that love was weakness, that trust got you killed, that the only language that mattered was power. At 16, he watched his father murdered at the dinner table by his own brother. At 17, Vincent killed that uncle with his bare hands. He never looked back. The years blurred together. Deals made in shadows. Bodies that disappeared. Money that flowed like rivers. Women who came and went from his bed but never touched his heart. He stopped counting. Stopped caring. He lived alone in his glass tower, surrounded by luxury and emptiness. His men respected him. His enemies feared him. But no one truly knew him. At night, when the city lights flickered below and the whiskey burned his throat, Vincent would stand by the floor-to-ceiling windows and wonder if this was all there was. Power without purpose. Wealth without warmth. He had locked his heart away so long ago, he'd forgotten where he buried the key. Until tonight, turning point. Her name was Elena. She stood in his living room, dripping wet, looking fragile and fierce at the same time. "I'm sorry," she finally whispered, her voice breaking. "I had nowhere else to go." Vincent studied her. He'd seen her before 3 months ago at one of his legitimate businesses, a restaurant downtown. She worked there as a waitress. He'd noticed her immediately, though he couldn't say why. Maybe it was the way she smiled at customers, genuine and warm. Maybe it was how she treated the old dishwasher with kindness when everyone else ignored him. She had light in her eyes. Real light. He'd found himself going back to that restaurant more often than necessary, always requesting her section, never saying more than his order. And now she was here. "Who hurt you?" he asked quietly. She flinched. "How did you?" "I can see it." He gestured to the bruise forming on her cheekbone, barely visible under the smeared makeup. "Who?" Elena's lips trembled. "My brother. He borrowed money from some men. Bad men. He couldn't pay it back, so they came to our apartment tonight. They said if he didn't give them $50,000 by tomorrow, they'd..." She couldn't finish. "He ran. Just ran and left me there with them." Her voice cracked completely. They were going to hurt me, to send him a message. I fought one of them and escaped through the fire escape. I ran in the rain for blocks and blocks, and I remembered you. From the restaurant. I know who you are, Mr. Corso. Everyone knows. I thought maybe. You thought maybe one monster could save you from others? She met his eyes. I thought maybe you were different. Something inside Vincent's chest shifted, cracked, like ice breaking after a long winter. No one had ever looked at him with hope before. Only fear, only greed, only calculation. But this woman, shaking and desperate in his home, looked at him like he could be good. What's your brother's name? He asked. Marco Vitali. Vincent knew the name, knew the debt. It was Tommy the Rat Castellano's operation. A mid-level loan shark who operated in Vincent's territory but wasn't directly under his control. Violent, sloppy, ambitious. 50,000, Vincent said softly. And your brother just left you. Elena's eyes filled with fresh tears. He's weak. He's always been weak. But he's still my brother. I raised him after our parents died. Her voice broke. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Because you're exhausted, Vincent said. Because you're terrified. Because you have no one else. He walked to his bar, poured a glass of brandy, and brought it to her. Drink. She took it with shaking hands. Stay here tonight, he said. You're safe. Tomorrow I'll handle this. I don't have money to pay you. I didn't ask for money. Elena looked up at him, confused and vulnerable. Why would you help me? Vincent didn't have an answer, not one that made sense. So he just said, because you asked. That night, Elena slept in his guest room, the first person other than him to ever sleep in this penthouse. Vincent stood by his window, unable to rest, feeling something he hadn't felt in decades. He felt needed, not for his power, not for his connections, not for what he could take or destroy, but for what he could protect. The shift. The next morning, Vincent made a single phone call. Tommy, the rat, showed up at the penthouse within the hour, sweating and nervous. Mr. Corso, he said, trying to sound respectful. I didn't know you wanted to see me. If this is about territory, I swear I've been paying. Elena Vitali, Vincent interrupted. The debt her brother owes you. It's forgiven. Tommy blinked. What? The debt is forgiven. You don't go near her. You don't go near her brother. You forget they exist. Tommy's face twisted. With respect, Mr. Corso, that's 50 grand. The brother gambled it away at my tables, and the girl is under my protection now. Vincent's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. Are we clear? Tommy swallowed hard. He wasn't stupid. Yes, Mr. Corso. Crystal clear. Good. Leave. After Tommy left, Elena emerged from the guest room, wearing one of Vincent's shirts because her clothes from last night were still drying. She looked small in it, young, beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with makeup or styling. Is it over? She asked quietly. It's over. She exhaled a shaking breath. Thank you. I don't know how to repay. Go home, Elena. Be safe. That's enough. But she didn't move toward the door. Instead, she walked closer to him. Why do you come to the restaurant so often? She asked softly. It's not for the food. Vincent's jaw tightened. No. Then why? He could have lied. Should have lied. But when he looked into her eyes, the truth came out before he could stop it. Because when I see you smile at strangers, I remember what warmth looks like. Elena's breath caught. The moment stretched between them, fragile and dangerous. I should go, she whispered. Yes, but neither of them moved. Growing connection. Elena left that morning, but she came back 3 days later. She knocked on his door at sunset, holding a container of homemade pasta. You saved my life, she said simply. The least I can do is feed you something that didn't come from a 5-star chef. Vincent should have said no, should have kept the distance. Instead, he let her in. They ate together at his long, empty dining table. She told him about her childhood in Brooklyn, about raising her brother after their parents' car accident, about her dreams of opening a small bakery someday. He listened. He never just listened to anyone, but with her he wanted to hear everything. What about you? She asked. What did you want to be before all this? Vincent stared at his wine glass. A teacher, he said quietly. I wanted to teach history. Elena smiled softly. You still could. No, I couldn't. Why not? Because of what I am. What I've done. She reached across the table and touched his hand, just her fingertips against his knuckles. It was the gentlest thing he'd felt in years. People can change, she whispered. Not people like me. Maybe you just never had a reason to try. The visits became regular. Once a week, twice, then almost every evening. Elena would come after her shift at the restaurant. She'd cook for him, or they'd talk, or sometimes they'd just sit in comfortable silence while she read a book and he worked on his laptop. Vincent's men noticed, started whispering. His second in command, a brutal enforcer named Sal, finally pulled him aside. Boss, people are talking. You're getting soft. Spending time with this girl. Turning down business opportunities, showing mercy to. Careful, Vincent said quietly. Sal stepped back. I'm loyal to you. You know that. But the families are watching. They see weakness. They'll move on you. Vincent knew he was right. But when Elena smiled at him, when she touched his face and told him about her day, when she fell asleep on his couch and he carried her to bed without waking her, he didn't care. For the first time in his life, Vincent Corso didn't care about power. He cared about her. Conflict and pain. It happened on a cold October night. Vincent was in a meeting with the other families, a tense negotiation about territory and tribute. He just refused a lucrative drug route, something the old Vincent would have taken without hesitation. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. A photo loaded. Elena, tied to a chair. Blood on her mouth. Terror in her eyes. Vincent's entire world stopped. The second message came through. You've gone soft, Corso. This is what happens. Come alone to the warehouse on 5th and Main. Midnight. Where she dies screaming. Vincent stood so abruptly his chair fell backward. Meeting's over, he said, his voice like death itself. He knew who did this. Tommy the rat. The lone shark he'd humiliated. The man who'd lost face when Vincent made him back down. Sal tried to stop him. Boss, it's a trap. Take the crew, Will. No. Vincent's eyes were hollow again. Empty. The way they used to be. I go alone. That's suicide. Then I die. Because the alternative, Elena suffering because of him, was worse than any death. The warehouse was abandoned. Dark except for a single light in the center. Elena was there, tied and gagged, crying. Tommy stood behind her with a gun to her head. 6 other men surrounded them. The great Vincent Corso, Tommy sneered. On his knees for a girl. How the mighty fall. Vincent walked forward slowly, hands visible, unarmed. Let her go. Your problem is with me. My problem is that you disrespected me. Tommy screamed. You made me look weak. You chose some waitress over the code, over the family. I chose to be human, Vincent said quietly. Something you wouldn't understand. Tommy pressed the gun harder against Elena's temple. She whimpered. Here's what's going to happen, Tommy said. You're going to kneel, beg, and then I'm going to kill you both anyway. But at least everyone will know what happens when you go soft. Vincent met Elena's eyes. She was shaking her head, tears streaming, trying to tell him to run. But he just smiled at her. Gentle, real. The first real smile he'd given anyone in 20 years. I love you, he said. Time seemed to stop. Then Vincent moved. He was rusty, older, unarmed. But Vincent Corso hadn't built his empire by being weak. He'd built it by being ruthless. The violence was quick, brutal, efficient. He disarmed the first man with a broken wrist. Used that gun to shoot 2 others. Took a bullet to the shoulder but didn't stop. Crushed another man's throat. Dodged. Struck. Survived. Tommy tried to shoot Elena, but Vincent threw himself in front of her. The bullet hit him in the chest. He fell, but not before firing one last shot. Tommy dropped, dead before he hit the ground. Emotional resolution. Elena's scream cut through the warehouse. She tore free from the ropes, collapsed beside Vincent, pressing her hands against the wound in his chest. No, 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 she sobbed. Vincent, stay with me. Please, please don't leave me. Blood pooled beneath him. His breathing was shallow, but he lifted one hand and touched her face. I'm sorry, he whispered. I brought this to you. Don't you dare apologize. You saved me. You saved me. I loved you the moment you walked into my life, dripping wet and hopeful. His voice was fading. You reminded me I was still human. Then stay human with me, Elena begged. Stay. Fight. Please. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the police. Vincent's eyes were closing. Vincent. He woke up 3 days later in a private hospital room. Elena was asleep in the chair beside his bed, her hand wrapped around his. He'd survived. The bullet missed his heart by inches. When he squeezed her hand, Elena jerked awake, and when she saw his open eyes, she burst into tears. You're alive. Oh God, you're alive. Apparently I'm harder to kill than I thought, he rasped. She kissed his forehead, his cheeks, his hands, laughing and crying at once. The police came, she said. But your lawyer handled everything. Self-defense. Tommy's men ran. It's over, Vincent. It's really over. No, he said quietly. It's not. Her smile faded. What do you mean? I can't go back to that life. Not after you. Not after. He struggled to sit up. I'm done, Elena. I'm walking away from all of it. They'll never let you walk away. Then I'll disappear. Change my name. Leave the city. Leave everything. He looked at her with desperate intensity. Come with me. Elena's breath caught. Vincent. I have money hidden away. Enough to start over. A small town somewhere. A quiet life. I could be normal. We could be normal. His voice cracked. Please, I spent 40 years in darkness. You're the first light I've ever known. Don't make me go into the light alone. Tears streamed down Elena's face. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Epilogue 6 months later. The small coastal town was nothing like the city. No skyscrapers. No sirens. No shadows filled with violence and fear. Just ocean breeze, fishing boats, and a tiny bakery on Main Street. The sign above the door read, Elena's. Inside, a man with salt and pepper hair and reading glasses helped an elderly customer choose between sourdough and rye. He smiled a real, warm smile and recommended the sourdough. My wife baked it fresh this morning. Best in town. The customer left happy. Vincent, now going by Michael Grant, locked the door and flipped the sign to closed. Elena emerged from the kitchen, flour on her cheek, wearing an apron and the brightest smile he'd ever seen. Good day? She asked. Every day with you is good. She laughed and kissed him. They cleaned the bakery together, talking about small things. The new order of cinnamon. The broken shelf that needed fixing. The neighbor's cat that kept sneaking in. Normal things. Beautiful things. That night, they walked along the beach, hand in hand. Do you miss it? Elena asked quietly. The power. The control. Vincent looked at her. This woman who'd stumbled into his penthouse soaking wet and terrified. Who'd seen the monster he was and believed he could be more. I don't miss being feared, he said. I spent my whole life making people afraid of me. It's a relief to just be loved. Elena leaned her head on his shoulder. The waves crashed gently against the shore. The moon hung low and full. And Vincent Corso, the man who once ruled a city through fear and blood, felt something he never thought possible. Peace. He'd lost everything, his empire, his name, his power. But he'd gained the only thing that ever truly mattered. A chance to be human. A chance to love. A chance to live. And as Elena's laughter mixed with the sound of the ocean, Vincent realized that redemption wasn't about erasing the past. It was about choosing every single day to be better than who you were yesterday. Thank you, he whispered, though he wasn't sure if he was talking to Elena, to God, or to the universe itself. For what? She asked. For walking through my door. For giving me a reason to change. For loving the man I'm trying to become instead of the man I was. Elena stopped walking and turned to face him. The moonlight caught her eyes, and Vincent saw his entire future reflected there. We saved each other, she said simply. And she was right. She'd stumbled into his penthouse broken and desperate, and he'd been living in a prison of his own making. Two people drowning in different ways. But together they learned to breathe again. Vincent pulled her close, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world. Because she was. And as they stood there on that quiet beach, far from the violence and darkness of their past, Vincent Corso finally understood what it meant to be free. Not free from consequences. Not free from his history. But free to choose love over fear. Free to choose light over darkness. Free to choose her every day for the rest of his life. I love you, he whispered into her hair. I love you too, Elena whispered back. And in that moment, under the vast and gentle sky, the feared mafia boss who'd once had everything and nothing finally had the one thing that mattered. Home. Not a place. Person. Her. The rain brought her to his door. Love brought him back to life. And together, they found redemption in the most unexpected place. Each other's arms.